All right, we're setting up a UniFi system for a client. It's actually a pretty good setup. We recommend it for home users if you're pretty tech savvy. It's a UniFi Dream Machine Pro, 3 of the new light Wi-Fi 6 access points, and a PoE switch. We're also going to be setting up this NAS too, so we'll walk you through that configuration as well. All right, so the first thing you're going to do is, before you even power up your Dream Machine, you're going to take out the hard drive. There actually won't be one in there, and you just need to add it to this. So even if you're not going to be using it for storage, most times it's for video camera storage, but because the Dream Machine actually has an internal controller and has databases, it's far better to add the storage at the beginning. It's a little tougher to add at the end, so we always recommend just putting a drive in there even if you're not really planning to use it. It comes in handy later. Okay, once you're powered up, you will have to connect it to internet. You actually can't set this up without giving it internet connection. Once you connect it to the internet, it's going to ask you to get on the app where your control. All right, now that we're in here, it's going to be going through the discovery process. So it's looking out, trying to find any device, and there we see one device found. It's the Dream Machine Pro. Then we're going to select it. It's connecting. Now we're going to go through the setup process. Personal, business, your account, basically when you want it to update. It's going to run a speed test. It helps configure some of the settings. Once that's done, you're pretty much good to go. It's just going to set up a network afterwards. Now let's head back to the hardware install. Now, if you don't know what a PoE switch is, it essentially provides power over Ethernet. So when you have your access points, here you don't actually need to run power on it. You can see on the back, they just have one Ethernet port that actually powers these as well. So sometimes the Dream Machine Pro doesn't have PoE, but if you add a switch, you can just use your Cat 5 to power everything. So we'll let this power on, and then I'll check the controller so we can see how to adopt it. All right, so now we're going to be doing the exact same setup. We're just going to be setting up and adopting our PoE switch, and then shortly thereafter our access points. It's very simple, same process. You're on your app, it goes out and looks for the device. It will come up right away. If it doesn't, there's probably something wrong, or you just, doesn't have power or something like that. Now this setup is pretty simple when it goes smoothly. I will say though that like for example the Dream Machine Pro, it's a self-contained, its controller is inside of it essentially, which is something kind of new, which leaves some options where if you break the tables in there, you break the OS that's used, it can be kind of a pain to reset, but as long as you're methodical about it and have a good sense, learning to SSH into these devices isn't the end of the world. So, all right, next we need to add our access points and adopt them. So we're going to plug in our Cat 5, Cat 6 to the PoE switch, and then the other ends are going to go in the back of the AP, and they will all start to power on. And if everything works correctly, you should get a prompt in your controller about adoption, but I'll show you that as well. Okay, so now you can just see Cat 5 to the back of the APs, and they will start to power on. There you can see the lights starting to flash. That means that they are getting set up to be adopted. So let's check our controller. All right, we're back here again in the controller. One thing I will note about this is that menu that keeps popping up trying to prompt me to adopt them, if you go about doing it that way, it will require you to create a Wi-Fi network for the device, which you may or may not actually want to do at this time. I tend to not do it that way. I like to just adopt everything, see what I've got, make sure everything is fully updated, firmware patched, and then start configuring everything once that's over. So now I like to make sure everything's fully up to date. All the firmware is current. This process should be pretty simple, at least for access points and switches. But if you have any trouble or you need to do it manually, you can go get all the firmware from UniFi's site. They have it all laid out pretty nicely. Just search for UniFi downloads and you'll see it all there. So we're just going to wait for these to update all the way and then take the last little step here. Once that's updated, you're pretty much good to go as far as hardware is concerned. So we've got everything laid out. Now, you would never install it like this, but this is just testing. I figured it'd be a good chance to do a walkthrough. And here's a final look at the web-based controller. Now, we're going to have another video going over this in depth, so don't worry about it for now. But as you can see, there's what we just set up. Everything mapped out nicely, all the firmware patched, and we've tested all the hardware. It's good to go. So we're going to have a happy client here pretty soon. If you like this video or want to see more, please subscribe. We will try to bring more content like this as time goes on.